Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hey Man, It's Okay. I'm your host, Sky, here with just a brief message before we get into this episode. I just want you guys to know that at the end of episode 20 of this season, that will be the end of season 2, and we are going to take a little bit of time before we get into season 3. So please stick with us as there will be a pretty long break, just a couple of months, while Ryan and I are focusing on some stuff in our personal life. Ryan's focusing on his private practice, and I'm taking some classes. So I'm going to really be focusing on that. So please stick with us, stay around, stay tuned. We have so much cool stuff coming. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out our website, heymanitsokay.com, and stay with us, please, because season 3 is going to be a killer one. Send us your ideas, email us, let us know the things you think we should talk about, maybe some guests that we should have on season 3. So please stay with us. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hey Man, It's Okay. I'm one of your hosts, Sky Bridges. Ryan isn't here with us today, but we actually do have a very special guest. We have Eric Jones. He is the Director of Man Therapy Partnerships at Grit Digital Health. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, how you doing today, Sky? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Even though we don't have Ryan here, I think you and I can still have, a really cool conversation. We got to meet the other day. We were talking about something a little different, and then you coming on the podcast just kind of came up naturally. So I was like, well, I'd love to have you on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do for Man Therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, my name's Eric Jones. What I do is I'm the Director of Man Therapy Partnerships. What this basically means is I create partnerships all across the country for mantherapy.org. The idea of Man Therapy kind of started back in 2012, whenever there was going to be a public awareness campaign done around Colorado, around men's mental health. And from there, they realized that there needed to be this 24/7 platform where men could go on and get help at any time, any day, anytime, that sort of thing. And it had to be anonymous. So they created a website, which is mantherapy.org. From there, it has kind of grown and grown. And we're about to launch our third iteration of the site. But the idea behind Man Therapy is to do it with humor and using male stereotypes. So that way it's kind of this disarming and humorous experience instead of being the trope of the guy with his head in his hands and sitting in a dark corner in an alleyway. We were trying to steer away from that. So that's kind of what Man Therapy is, and my journey is much longer story than that. So I don't know if you have if you want me to keep going.
We're here we're here for telling stories and just talking about mental health and talking about people's journeys, because that's the way that we're going to break the stigma of men talking, is by talking and putting it out there for people to see.
Absolutely.
So please, let's hear it.
All right, man. Well, I'll let her fly. So grew up well below the poverty line in a rural town outside of Jacksonville, Florida. My way out of that was to join the military. I found myself in the Army as a combat engineer in 2005.
Thanks for your service.
Yeah, of course. So back in 2005, I was in Afghanistan at the ripe old age of 19 years old and was there for over a year, and then came back, really struggled with my mental health through my 20s. Lost a couple friends to suicide. I was abusing alcohol, other substances, and ultimately led to a suicide attempt on my part, which I did not complete. And round about that time, that was my first attempt. My daughter would have been an infant. And then I continued down the same path of drinking too much and not being a real great dad. My daughter was about 3, and I had what was going to be another attempt, but my daughter walked in the garage during it at 3 years old. She woke up in the middle of the night and walked in on me. And it changed my life trajectory. And I started realizing, like, okay, if I'm not going to live for myself, I'm going to live for my daughter. And that was kind of my mantra at that age.
And how old were you then?
I was 30, round about 30. I could have been 29. I haven't really. I always tell people my mental health journey started at 30. So it's never too late to start if you're out there. So
I was 28.
Yeah, and so then I got involved with some not-for-profits doing veteran suicide prevention stuff. I really found a lot of purpose and meaning and drive through helping others and through telling my story and letting people know that it's okay to talk about your mental health. And there's to kind of, like you said, bust down that stigma and the idea that it's all right. You know, it's not the manly thing isn't keeping quiet. The manly thing is taking care of yourself and your family. And so
Right.
interesting. And all of these topics are fair for discussion, but I became a park ranger for the state of Florida. From there, went and worked security at TSA in Minnesota, which is a pretty hilarious story. Feel free to ask away on that.
Okay. All right. I'll mental note made.
Yeah. From there, I started, I went and became a debt counselor for veterans, which then I went and started doing some Freedom of Information Act work at a different agency because I wanted to move out west. That was Colorado. And then the position as the Veteran Suicide Prevention Coordinator for the state of Colorado came up. I never thought I would, through this whole time, that's about a 7-year journey that I just kind of fast forwarded through, going to therapy twice a week and finding the medication that works for me and that sort of thing. And then it's an interesting story in and of itself of some friends told me, you should really apply for this. And I was like, I don't qualify for this job. They'll never even, get past my resume. And the job, right about the time that the posting was up, the girl I was dating at the time, her mother became suddenly ill and passed away. And so we were traveling back and forth through Indiana, back from Colorado to Indiana several times. And I never applied for the job. And about a month later, they didn't hire whoever the original candidate was. So they reopened the job.
Oh, okay.
Same people that were trying to get me to apply for it the first time were like, you really need to apply this time. Like, this is. And so I did, and I got the job. And I will forever be grateful to that team there at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment for all of the amazing work that they do and the opportunities I was given there. So I was in that position for a year and a half, and I really, so through that, I was a veteran suicide prevention subject matter expert. I was working age male suicide prevention subject matter expert and firearm suicide prevention subject matter expert. So I was
For the state of
for
Colorado.
the state of Colorado.
Wow. Amazing.
I also would go and do national presentations on specifically firearm suicide prevention and even some of the work to the working age male. We can talk a little bit about the numbers, and that can be in the future. But I'll tell you what I really realized is that how wonderful this man therapy platform is, the impact that it has made in Colorado. And I would go out and take it on the road with me on my tours around the state, talking to veterans and talk about it. And I could see the impact that it would make immediately, where somebody's like, oh my goodness, this platform, like I can actually do this. Like, it's not, and nobody knows that I'm on here and there's a couple laughs I can get. So I decided to go and work over at Grit Digital Health. And so that's the newest chapter of my book. And our plan is to take the platform nationwide. And, it really, Colorado's the flagship state. Also strong partnerships with Michigan and Ohio, counties across the country, that sort of thing.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I want to go back to something that you mentioned. You talked about you work with veterans, and I think it's really telling that when you dial 988, which new sign, by the way, I hope people like it. 988, the option 1 is for the veteran suicide line. So it says something that's got to be a pretty big epidemic and things going on. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with the veterans? We actually had a veteran on our podcast not that long ago.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So I'm excited to talk to somebody else about this.
Yeah. So a lot of people, for those that are unfamiliar, veteran, the number actually went down this year, but over the years, it has held pretty steady at 22 veterans a day die by suicide.
Man.
And, I've worked with some people over at Mission 22 and lots of different not-for-profits that Irreverent Warriors. I'm just giving shameless plugs to these great not-for-profits that I've been around for a while.
Please plug away.
So 22 veterans a day over basically the past 20 years have died by suicide. It is, as you said, an epidemic. It is that, in case anyone's curious, that is twice the rate of an average of a non-veteran. So
wow.
There's lots of reasons as to why, but as I'm sure you know, suicide is a very complex issue. There's never one reason behind suicide. And we always try to talk about that, which is, if we knew what the solution was, it would just be that easy, right? So that's why you have to have these super comprehensive approaches. I've known 10 veterans who've died by suicide. I had one attempt and one attempt that was stopped, as I mentioned in my story. And so it's something that I've struggled with, even up until recent. I still struggle with, I have what's called chronic suicidality. So it's
Okay.
something that probably a day doesn't go by that I don't, think about it, or at least, that sort of thing. That's a different thing. It's a different classification than being like actively suicidal. It's interesting. It's definitely the whole veteran question is, I wish I knew the answer because I could solve it, but I don't think any of us do.
Yeah. My wife actually just lost a close childhood friend who was a veteran to suicide. And I can say that, I have so many friends who served, who deal with mental health issues, who have, suicidal ideations. And it's something that's really hard to deal with. So first I applaud you for being here with us and, not just at this time and place, but with us on the earth still to be able to share your story and maybe help encourage others to turn their story around and let them know that there is hope on the other side.
Oh, absolutely. No, I thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me and having me be on here and be able to kind of share my story and voice, give a voice to those veterans. I always talk about, people have challenged me or said to me over the years, oh my goodness, I can't imagine how you talk about the things that you talk about. It's so intimate, it's so personal, and I like to point out that I like to be the voice for somebody who may not be able to have that voice. So my first suicide attempt, I was drinking heavily,
Okay.
not sober. And this is the one thing that I usually talk about, which is I had a handgun and I was ready to end my life. Had a note written, the whole, all of that, and put the barrel of the gun in my mouth, pulled the trigger, and it went click. I just never chambered around. Is what happened. I never put a bullet into the chamber. But the one thing that I always talk about was even in that moment of being completely drunk and high on medicine and whatever else, whenever I heard that click, the only thing that went through my mind was, I don't want to die. And so I tell people that all the time, which is like, I never judge anyone for how they're feeling, right? Like your feelings are yours and they're valid no matter what they are. And
Right. Yeah.
but I never want anyone to get to that dark of a place.
Yeah. It's hard to hear and it's hard to see. I know our my co-host Ryan survived a suicide attempt also. And it was a gun. There's a gentleman whose story I've been following a little bit, and I won't say his name, but he survived a jump off of the Golden Gate Bridge, and he talks about how he was in the water, mostly paralyzed, and his only thought was, I don't want to die, and I'm going to die here with people thinking that I did, and I don't. So it's interesting that you said, as soon as you heard that click, I knew I didn't want to die.
I know the story you're referring to. So it's interesting. He actually advocated for having nets put up around the Golden Gate Bridge.
I'm actually trying to work on something very similar up here because I lost a cousin to a bridge jump, and I'm trying to work on some stuff with city council, trying to put a jump stop on a particular bridge here in Washington State.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's so that's a little bit of my story and how it kind of got here. And talk like I said, like being the veteran. The one thing that I always tell people, whenever I talk about, I'm a disabled vet. I was injured overseas, that sort of thing. So a lot of times, a lot of the places that I work are very forward thinking. Is how I like to put it. And so I'm usually asked to give a veteran's perspective. And
Makes
the
sense.
number one thing is that I tell people is that veterans are not a monolith, right? So it's this weird thing where it's like people will say things like, "Oh, veterans do this or veterans do that," and it's like, or veterans look like this or veterans look like that, and it's like that does not work. Like when I used to do these big speaking engagements across Colorado, especially with mixed audiences of non-veterans, veterans, that sort of thing, I would ask everyone to envision in their head, like, what do you think a veteran looks like? Like, I want you to like really think about it, And then I would say, all right, if you're comfortable, if there's any veterans in the room, please stand up. And inevitably, it would be the most diverse population that you could possibly think of.
Yeah, I imagine
And
so.
so, whenever we try to solve problems, most people, when they think veteran, they think short hair, they think super patriotic and that sort of thing. And it's like, that's not all of us. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, I know several veterans, and none of them I would expect to be veterans, and it's pretty funny that, you know, people say that there's a stereotype and you can tell which veterans are, real veterans and which ones are not. And the truth is you can't. And I think that that's the same way people think for people who deal with mental health issues and, people who are suicidal. You're going to be able to tell, but the truth is you never know who you're talking to, and you never know who's in front of you, which is something to really keep in mind, I think.
yeah, 100%.
Can you tell me about some of the work that you guys are doing at Man Therapy? Like, not just with your position, but I'm sure you're aware of, the goings on. Maybe tell us a little bit about the programs and kind of what Man Therapy is doing right now.
Absolutely. So thank you for asking that. So Man Therapy, as mentioned, is going through its third iteration. So we are going to unveil Man Therapy 3.0 in quarter 4 of this year is the expectation. I can't give you a date because I don't have one. So Man Therapy, as I mentioned, has been around since 2012. It's constantly evolving. As mentioned, it uses male stereotypes and humor to reach men, specifically working age men, which are the highest population
Mm-hmm.
that is at risk for suicide. They die at a rate roughly 3.9 times higher than women.
Oh, wow.
So, with the new Man Therapy rebuild that we're doing, the new rollout, we are trying to add in a lot more resources for helping out someone else. So lots more resources. We're taking a much more equitable approach to Man Therapy. Not that there wasn't in the beginning. It's just it's meant to help a certain subsect. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Um,
How dare you have human needs?
I know. I actually woke up at 3 a.m. this morning. My throat was killing me. I don't know what's going on.
Whew.
So we are adding new content to the site, which is constantly happening, but we're actually refreshing what the site looks like and going through. And we're actually going to roll out a Spanish only speaking site at the same time we roll out the new site as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is a huge deal for us to be able to take again a more equitable approach. We're trying to reach broader audiences and help other people, as well as just improve the site and the things that how people interact with the site and get better engagement. Which we already have fantastic engagement, but we're always trying to improve here.
Yeah, that's great. I found your guys' website through a Google search, and I've seen the ads before, but it's been a little while since I've seen them. And when I was doing my Google search on men's mental health organizations, you guys were very high up on the list. So I think that the work you're doing is really making a difference, and that's got to feel really good.
Oh, it feels amazing. So as I mentioned, Colorado is a flagship partner. So I talked a little bit about the numbers earlier. So male suicide across the country increased, I want to say 2.3%, according to the new preliminary CDC numbers. I don't know if you saw that or not, but they just came out with their 2022 numbers.
I haven't yet. The last one I saw were
So yeah,
2021.
they just came out their 2022 numbers, I think last few weeks.
Okay.
Colorado's numbers for the year of 2022 saw a reduction of 6.5% reduction in male suicide in the state, while the nation saw an increase. And we are very humble about our contribution to that. And we're just grateful that we get to be a part of this amazing approach that Colorado's taking. But we are the tool that is used in Colorado for working age men. That is what the state of Colorado promotes, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're trying to get done. Is I don't know if you know this about Man Therapy or not, but there was a CDC funded study done by the University of Maryland in November. It came out in November of 2022 that showed the effectiveness of Man Therapy. And so we have evidence-based research that shows that guys that are in this high-risk category of feeling suicidal, I think we saw an increase of 32% improved behaviors around help seeking and reduced stigma. And there's another 80% of that study that showed that it was an effective tool for them to use in their mental health space. So we know that man therapy works. We know that if we can get people to the site, that we can make an impact on men's mental health and the conversations around it. That's kind of where we're at now. So now that we know that it works, we have that to go to with our government agencies and say, hey, listen, we have a tool that works to reach these men. Can you help us get it in front of the men in your state? So that's kind of where we're at currently.
That's pretty amazing. How cool. So the work you're doing works and you're seeing the numbers. What are the next steps? What can we all do to, help spread the message and spread the word?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as spreading the message and spreading the word, we have Man Therapy Champions, which are individuals who, if you want to get involved and help out and kind of use it in whether it be your podcast or in your day-to-day life or at your work, we have champions that we encourage and kind of can give you materials to help spread the word. We have, if you work in a male-dominated field, or even in a non-male-dominated field, if you have a lot of male coworkers, we work with corporate partners. Specifically, we're currently working with a couple construction industry partners. And so those construction industry partners, I don't know if you know this, but as I mentioned, men are almost 4 times more likely to die by suicide, but construction workers are also 4 times as likely to die by suicide. So that's 4 on 4.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
We've really focused a lot of our efforts there because we've built specific tools for the construction industry. With them, we kind of work with these different corporations and give them resources to help build out. So if you work in one of those fields, we absolutely can help. And the biggest thing you can do right now is if you know someone who works in the public health field, whether that be at the city or county level, state level, we really are trying to grow partnerships within communities, because we know that that's the best way to reach people, and the people within their communities know the best way of reaching them. So we're trying to partner with those folks so that we can reach people eventually nationwide is the goal. We're ready to do it now. It's more just getting in the room and having the conversation with the people that are in those spaces.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Right, absolutely. It's tough, right? Where it's like I came from the public health world. So I've been on the other side of a man therapy partnership. And so it's funny because I talk to people and I kind of get the same, I don't want to say feeling that I used to give off to other people when I was in that, but it's like funding is limited and we're aware of that. And so it's funny whenever I reach out to someone at a public health industry and I say, hey, listen, I want to partner with you. And I get I don't have any money. And it's like, I understand, but like, let's talk about how we can make this work in the future. Like, and a lot of times a lot of people don't want to even, I shouldn't put it that way, but a lot of times I feel like people in suicide prevention work are very busy is how I will frame it.
Oh, yeah.
And their time is very valuable. But it's hard to get across to people at times that like, hey, I've been in your shoes. I know what that looks like. Like, just have a conversation with me. I promise you the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get some laughs and have a good 30 minutes and we could talk about suicide prevention efforts and what works and what doesn't across the country. That's the worst case scenario. And for some reason, even just getting that conversation started seems to be the hardest part.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because people don't necessarily want to divulge information very easily if it's not something that they're particularly familiar with.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about, or I'd like to talk a little bit about, men's mental health in general, because, this is a men's mental health podcast. What kind of advice do you have for someone who is looking for like a specific type of therapist? I believe you guys or Man Therapy has something that you guys connect people to therapists with?
That will be coming out in the newest iteration, yes.
Okay.
We're going to have that is one of the big highlights, is where we're going to have better connections with online providers for therapy. We're looking to broach that a lot more, and kind of give guys that access to a vetted therapy source. As far as what we do
Awesome.
currently, it's a lot more of giving people the skills that you may need. So like for me, I talk about this all the time: breathing, breath work, journaling, those things, right? Those are my tools that I get to get me through the day. I have my journals right here. So my journal
Oh,
stays on
nice.
my desk. I write in it. I try to write in it every day. And I know whatever I haven't written in a while, I start to feel it. So we talk about things like that on the Man Therapy platform, where it's like, hey, if you don't have a place to get your feelings out, right? Like if you don't have someone that you feel like you can talk to, write it down in a book, right? Write it down on a notepad, get it out of your head. That's so that's the thing, right? Where it's like providing tools and resources for guys who can anonymously go on and get these things that are traditionally only held through therapy. We're not an alternative to therapy. We're not direct service, but we are a resource. We're part of that. What we do know is that if you wait until someone's in a acute suicidal crisis,
Hmm.
uh, it's the hardest to stop at that point. But if you can catch that person
Yeah.
upstream, right, and let them know that it's okay to talk about, hey, I'm not doing so hot, then from there, you can start taking better care of yourself, or taking care of your whoever it may be. So that's kind of the idea of the upstream approach to suicide prevention, which is not just that moment of suicidal crisis. We have the big red phone up top, which is if you need it to connect you with the 988 lifeline. But outside of that, we're more trying to give you strategies and resources of how to better take care of yourself, and use those upstream tools to never get to that point, as well as giving you local and national resources that you can click on and it will take you out. These are all vetted resources that good people doing good work.
So my next question for you would be, as you've gotten into this field of work and as you've gotten into man therapy, do you find yourself surrounded with people who are wanting to talk more? Or do you find it that people don't want to talk to you because they know, oh, you're going to be preachy about mental health?
Oh, that's such a great question. All the times I've been asked, I've never been asked that question, so that is fantastic.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
I think that it's A, regional, and B, it is individually specific. So I've had every reaction. My childhood best friend, from the age of 5, him and I have been best friends. We both went into the military at 18. He found himself in Iraq in 2005 when I was in Afghanistan. Him and I have this really interesting relationship around mental health because we've been around each other so long. His mom calls me her other son, right? And Mom Renee, if you're listening to this, I love you. So
Shout out.
shout out. I'll have to give her a link now. So the thing is like him and I have had the most honest conversations around like I don't know. Do you get an explicit rating on here? Can I curse? Because like we will say things.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's
So like we'll say things like, "Dude, what the fuck's wrong with you?" And like we know that that's not from a place like I would never use that in the professional world ever in a million years.
absolutely. Yeah,
But with
absolutely.
him, that's how I talk to him because like he's a brother to me.
Yeah.
I have another friend from teenage years that's here, and I say here, he lives down the road, and when we talk about it, I can tell that it's more of a strain for him. It's more of
Okay.
and so I take it upon myself to never come across as preachy or come across as, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that. I definitely try to take it more as the same thing that man therapy does, which is meet people where they're at. So I don't,
Yeah, that's good.
I don't want to be like, dude, you need to go find a therapist to talk about your problems. I don't say that to someone, right? Like, um, but what I do say to people like that friend that I'm talking about is, I'm very open with them. And I'm very, I kind of share my feelings a lot more. And I find that the more open I am about myself, the more open others become. Whereas other friends that I had back when I lived in Colorado, it was a much more open culture there versus where I'm in rural Florida right now. So the culture in Colorado was a much more open and forthcoming culture. At our work at Grit Digital Health, which is based out of Denver, we're encouraged to block off time on our calendar for our therapy. Right? It's not. Yeah, it's not. I mean, you could take off the time. The time that's not about the time off. It's about normalizing the idea that, hey, I'm not going to be at work for this hour because I'm going to be in therapy, and that's normal. So like you don't. Yeah, like you don't have to. It's just, if you want, like I put it on there. I go like to therapy twice a week, and sometimes once. But the thing is that I can put it on my calendar. People like it's. I don't feel weird about it. I tell people all the time. I try to tell people all the time that I go to therapy. It's really funny because the people who I tell that I go to therapy, sometimes you get this kind of like, I can't believe this person's about to talk about therapy. Like, oh my goodness. And it's like, to me, it's just as normal as any other, any other form of medicine. I tell people all the time, mental health is health, right? Like it's not, mental health isn't different from physical health. It's all part of your well-being.
Yeah. One of the things I like to talk about, with my circle of friends and with the people who I'm trying to encourage to do better mentally is, if I break my arm, I'm going to go to the doctor to have it fixed. Or if I'm, suffering high blood pressure, I'm going to go to my doctor to get the blood medicine to be able to live longer. If my brain is sick, why would I not go to a doctor that specializes in the brain to help take care of those things? That just seems like the most logical thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting world. It's an interesting thing that there's still this idea that your mental health isn't your actual health. For me, the other things that I do talking about that, and I actually talked about this last week on a different podcast I was on, but one of my coworkers, I am this, so again, combat veteran, dude. I'm 6'5", 240 pounds. I walk into a room.
You go hunting. We were talking about that beforehand.
I fish. This is
you're a manly man,
family man. Another shameless plug. This is Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. It's a wonderful public lands advocacy, not for profit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I used to volunteer with them quite a bit out in Denver. And the thing is like if you were to meet me, right, like meet me on the street, you'd be like, oh, that's a manly dude right there. Like he hunts, he fishes, he rides a Harley. Like there's not a lot about me that you would say, oh wow, he's not manly.
Okay.
But the things that I do, like whenever we talk about mental health, and it's like, whoa, like that really like breaks down some stereotypes and that sort of thing where it's like, yeah, I go to therapy and I talk about it. Yeah, like I've had, mental health breakdowns and that sort of thing. And the idea about those things, people kind of get taken aback sometimes where it's, but I think like, I always think of myself as this like super emotionally evolved dude, right? Where it's like, I'm really like on top of my stuff. And I have a coworker who I work with directly with me in therapy. And he has started ending our conversations at the end of the day, because we're always Slack chatting back and forth. He has started ending our conversations with love you, bro.
Oh, that's nice.
And the funny thing is like, I thought there was nothing that could be said to me that I would be like, huh, that's thought provoking and like makes me challenge who I am, right? Like, which is never a healthy thing. I want to point out that, right? Like, nobody should ever be like, I don't need to learn anything else. I'm the best there is. Like, I don't think that at all.
Yeah.
But I haven't had someone challenge me in my comfort level on those sort of things in a really long time. And the first day that I got it, I kind of was like, oh. And the next day he did it. And the next day he did it. I was like, dude.
Did you? I know.
It's like, no, well, like, no. Like, well, the thing is, I do love him. I love him back. Like, he's a great dude. We work super tight. We chat every day. We meet every day.
Yeah.
And like, so no, when I got it, I was like, no, I love you too, man. But then I was like, that was such a weird thing. Like, that was an interesting. And now it's like, no, I'm not weirded out by this. Like, I actually enjoy it. Like, it's so nice to hear from your male buddy. He's like, dude, I love you, man. Like, take care of yourself. And it's like, wow, that is next level.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I've noticed that in my, through it, the changing of my friends and through my journey, I started telling my guy friends, "Hey, I love you, man," because I feel like we don't say it to each other enough. And what's the problem with telling my friend who might be even closer than a brother that I love him? I tell my brothers I love them. Why can't I tell, one of my best buddies that I love him? And so I've started doing that too. So I'm glad that your friend did it because maybe I would have made you uncomfortable if I didn't.
Yeah, no, it's funny, right? Where it's like, no, it wasn't the like I'm fine with telling the guys in my life that I love them. That's not what it was. It was the super casualness of it. Like it wasn't like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where like you have my friend that I was talking about that maybe is in a different bit of a different
Yeah.
place with his mental health journey than I am. Even him and I can say that we love each other, right? Because we do. But it's typically not like I don't say it every time I see him. It's definitely like, oh, like I'm going away to war. I'm going to tell this
Yeah.
guy that I love him, right? Like, or, you know, we have this super great conversation about what we want to do with our life and where we want to go. And it's like, I'm going to tell this guy, like, hey, man, I'm really appreciative of having you in my life. But to make it this really casual thing in conversation, it's like, oof. And I'm a bit, I have work to do still.
Yeah. We all
Yeah,
do.
we all do, of course. Yeah. So you were talking about that conversation and with people. I really encourage any dude out there that thinks that they're too manly to take care of their mental health to really take a long look in the mirror and kind of check that idea and realize, again, like I'm going to take words from Dr. Rich Mahogany from Man Therapy, and say that the manliest thing you can do is take care of your mental health, right? Like that's the thing that you really need to realize is that it's more manly to take care of yourself than it is to not be emotionally available for your kids or your wife or your girlfriend or your mother, brother, sister, whoever it is that you're interacting with. Like the best thing you can do
Yeah.
is take care of yourself so you can show up better for them.
Yeah. I completely agree. And just real quick, going back to the I love you, man conversation. It happened to me in the wild the other day. I was talking to somebody who I'd kind of started interacting with on a regular basis. I picked up a new weekend job. I actually do some really fun food tours in Seattle. So if you're ever in the area, I'd love to take you around. But somebody who I interact with on a regular basis, we ran into each other getting on the train. He was like, "Hey, talk to you later. Love you, bro." And I was like, "Love you too."
So hold on, you do
So I see.
food tours? Hold on, no, I can't.
Yeah, I
What's a
started.
food tour?
I work for this company, and what we do is I actually do food tours at Pike Place Market in Seattle, and we visit. It's 8 different restaurants, 12 different tastings. It takes about 2 hours. It's a great time. I'm kind of getting to know that community, and it's great because Pike Place is actually a really supportive community of mental health people. So it's nice because there's a lot of care and help there, and so it's a community that I really support and I'm really falling in love
That's
with.
amazing, man. That's such a cool concept. Out here where I'm at, I could take you on a food tour, but it's just like 2 restaurants and a McDonald's. So sorry, you can cut that out. I don't know if they're gonna be mad at me for saying that, but
Ah. That's pretty funny. Um, sorry, my brain is starting to fail. Um, I mean, what's your favorite thing about being able to work for an organization that promotes mental health like this, especially for men?
well, now that is another good question. Um, the things that I love about this job, this organization, right, is that there's a couple things. One being, I can't show up to work unless truly show up and bring the best that I have, unless I can bring my entire self to the office. And so, what I mean by that is like, we all have bad days. I don't know of anybody
Yeah,
who doesn't have a bad day. And I can show up to work and have a big presentation to do or a big meeting to hit. And I can just look at whoever I'm working with that day and saying, hey, I'm going to need you to kind of pick up some of the load for me today. I'm not my best self right now. Can you help? Like, if you notice me slipping, kind of bring the energy, right? Because that's me. I'm the energy guy. I'm the one that's always, like, I mean, I guess we all are in a way, but um, so being able to show up as my whole self and just be like, hey, my depression's kicking my ass today. I'm going to do the best I can to crank out these reports for you, but they probably aren't going to get done until tomorrow. And honestly, tomorrow might not be any better. And have my coworkers and my fellow and my boss and everyone around me look at me and say, "That's okay," you know, you know,
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
just feel like there's nothing that is more important at my job than what I do. Like they're like for me, right? Like I get this great sense of fulfillment, but I also know that I have the freedom to show up and not be 100%, or I can be 110% and say, hey, I want to take on this extra. So that's probably the best part is being able to really bring yourself to work. Um, Obviously,
Mhm.
the other things that they do really well. It's a super family oriented work environment. I spend a lot of time with my daughter. We do a lot of different things together. We have
How old is your
She's
daughter?
just turned 12.
Oh, great.
Just turned 12 August 29th. So, and then my ex stepson turns 18 tomorrow, which
Oh,
if you
man.
want to feel old, have a kid that you did a lot of raising for and have him turn 18. Oh man. But so we do, and that is encouraged, right? Where it's like, if I've got to go and even if it's just like I'm going to go and pick up my daughter, and I've been promising her that this is true. So I've been promising her since her birthday. We haven't been able to find the time yet. We were going to go on Labor Day, but got canceled. Was to go get manicures and pedicures. We're going to go get
Oh,
manicures.
cool. I love getting
Yeah,
those.
we're going to get manicures, pedicures together. But I feel the freedom with my job that if I had an hour long block in my workday that I was like, hey, like, I don't have any pressing reports, I don't have any meetings, and I was like, I could just block that off and be like, I'm going to go and get a pedicure with my daughter, and that's not an issue, right? Like
Oh, that's so cool.
they really want you to be your best self because we know that bringing your best self to work is what's
Yeah.
really important. And there are days that I'm cranking out 12 hours because I'm just really into what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And but that's not the expectation. So that work life balance and really recognizing that,
That's so
yeah,
nice. One of the things you thought of, one of the things you said made me think of one of my favorite tools. It's actually a tool that my wife and I use. Are you familiar with spoon theory?
yeah, I am. That's the one where you have a certain number of spoons, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it sounds like your bosses are familiar with that as well. Like, hey, I'm not at 100%. Maybe I need someone else to pick up the slack, or maybe something's not going to get done today. And they're like, yep, cool, no problem. Take care of yourself. And my wife and I have a very similar thing. If she comes home, she's like, man, I am low on spoons. I'm like, all right, cool. I know I need to maybe make dinner that night, or maybe I need to clean the kitchen. And it works out really well. And it makes things, I mean, my wife and I have the best communication. She is my best friend. So that's one of my favorite tools for sure.
Yeah,
So I'm it's nice to hear that it's actually out in the business world that people are okay with people being low on spoons maybe.
yeah, absolutely. That's actually been my at my last two jobs. Again, this place was a totally different animal. But working with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, I can't say enough of how much those my life was changed there, where these people also prioritize bringing your whole self, and I could show up, and I'll never forget, I was having a really rough time, and I showed up to a monthly meeting, and it was just so happened that they had the new director of diversity, equity, and inclusion there, and she
Hmm.
was giving a presentation, and we were kind of going around and just kind of doing a check-in. Hey, how's everybody doing? Like, the question was, um, like, what can I do today? What can we do today to make your workflow more effective or something along the lines? And it came around to me. And it's interesting because I was definitely one of the older people in the office. And I just remember being like, I just need you to be kind to me today. Like, I'm just really in this awful space. I remember the director that was in there, kind of a guest in the meeting. she asked, like, what does that look like to you? And I was just like, I talked about one of the things about, being a big guy and being this sort of man's man. It's really easy to forget that, like, there are days when I just need a little extra love too. And I'll never forget that day. It was a big day for me, and like watching how my coworkers showed up for me. And I was going through this awful breakup, and really was struggling in my relationship with my daughter at the time, and that sort of thing. We weren't really getting along. I was just nothing. You ever have those times in your life where it feels like nothing goes right?
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
so I was having one of those times, and every single one of my coworkers, I mean, and we're talking adults, 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds, were texting me and saying, "Hey, let's go out and go play pool. Let's get you out of the house. Let's go." In this, like, watching these people show up for me in this way to like get me through the crisis when I didn't have my closest family members there.
Hmm.
Um, Watching them show up for me was just this amazing thing to see, and I feel like if I were to get in that place again in my current position, it would be the same reaction. There would be this rally around me of like, hey, get everybody together. Eric's struggling. Let's take care of him. Like, it's definitely a family feeling, where we're doing really good work.
That's awesome. That's so cool. That's so encouraging to hear that there are companies and things. I don't think it's just health departments. I think, mental health is becoming a really big conversation in media, whether that's, podcasts or TV shows or radio shows. I feel like there's more and more talk about normalizing therapy and normalizing taking care of your mental health. And it's this huge movement. And it's people like you and people like me who are kind of at this forefront trying to like lead the way and show others, hey, I'm okay, I'm a good person, and I'm doing what I need to normalize this thing.
Yeah, 100%. I look forward to that day. I've been doing work in the suicide prevention world for such a long time now, and it's interesting to see from where I started and where I'm at currently, and the difference in, um, not just me, but the perception of when I say what I do. I ran into somebody at the gym a couple days ago who I hadn't seen in years, and she was like, "Oh, what are you
Hmm.
doing now?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a director of partnerships at a men's mental health company." And she was just like, "That's cool. Like, we need to help the guys." And it's like 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been the reaction to that. Um,
Yeah, agreed.
where it's like you still see it, you still see the toxic stuff on the internet, of course, but like you're seeing less and less of it, where people are like, "Yeah, guys have feelings too."
Yeah. And I think that's important for all of us to remember that guys have feelings. We're human beings and we have the same feelings and the same emotions that you do. So let's encourage them all to share them. If it'll help them and if it'll, help normalize things, share your feelings. We all have feelings and they are all valid.
100%.
Yeah. Um, well, Eric, I feel like we could go on forever about this, but we are running low on time. I like to keep this commute length.
Yeah, it seems like your
um,
sweet spot, right?
yeah. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for talking about your story, talking about mantherapy.org. Anything that you want to plug before we end here? Do people reach out to you? Can people reach out to Man Therapy?
Absolutely. So, if you'd like, go to mantherapy.org. Over on the right, there's a drop down and it says to get involved in licensing. If you go there and click on any of these different links, you can become a champion or work through partner or state driven impact. That will get you to me. Otherwise, my email is Eric, and that's ERIC at gritdigitalhealth.com. That will get you to me. Really help us spread the word and get the work that we're doing out there. Again, we already know that this is working. This platform's working.
Yeah.
Mainly just get people out there to check it out, and kind of spread the word. And anybody who's interested, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk if you can't tell from this podcast.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Eric. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for joining us. Everyone else, thanks for joining us and thanks for listening in to Hey Man, It's Okay. Thank you for watching us on YouTube if that's what you're doing. Make sure to check out our website, heymanitsokay.com. And OK is just the letters O and K.com. We are on all social media platforms at Hey Man It's Okay. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, whatever you can. Let's spread the word together. Let's end the stigma together. And remember, it's okay to not be okay. And until next time, I'm Sky. Thanks for joining.